Who were the Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire, and how did they go from useful soldiers to causing problems? The Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire. The Janissaries is a very, bloody period of history. So it was like this. See, first of all, let's take a look at the region we are talking about, and then we will go into slightly more detail. Let's put the map on the screen. We're talking about Turkey, right? So Turkey, 1,000 years ago, there was no Turkish person there. No one spoke Turkish or practiced Islam, right? So what happened is around 1200 AD, the Turks were fleeing from the Mongols. The Turks used to live in Central Asia. Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, all those stans, not the Indo-Iranian stan, which is Tajikistan, the other stans. And all of that, okay? So the Turks lived in this region, also in southern Russia. The Tatars were also Turks. And then the Mongol Empire erupted out of nowhere, and the Turks fled from the Mongols because the Mongols were an all-conquering power, and the Turks were frightened. So they fled westwards, and they came in the region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and they went southwards, and that's how they entered Anatolia. Anatolia is the major portion of Turkey, the Asiatic portion of Turkey. So the Turks entered this region, and they were nomads, used to fighting all the time. And they found this population of peaceful Greek people, civilized Greek people, and they smashed this population. And they took the land, and they enslaved the people of the Greek origin people, and then they perpetrated the standard Turkish atrocities and all, conversion by force and thieving, kidnapping women and forcibly marrying them to Turks and that sort of thing. And that's how the Turks became white people, essentially Greek people. If you look at the genetics of Turkey, it's Greek genetics or some Armenian genetics. That's it. Very little Turkic genetics. So they essentially enslaved the local people and forced their women to marry Turks over and over again, over God knows how many generations, and that's what happened. Now, the Ottoman Empire then, with the conquest of Constantinople, 1453, it became a thing, and then they became a powerful force, and they were an expansionist force. They expanded westwards, eastwards, and so on. They conquered the Baltic regions, and they enslaved the people there. And one of the means of subjugating these defeated populations was to extract what was called the blood tax. The blood tax. So every village, they will go to every village and they'll say that every year you will give us X number of boys, young boys, like less than 10 years old. You will give your young boys to us. Every village has a certain quota. Every year they need to provide a certain number of boys. Maybe it's 10 boys, maybe it's 20 boys, whatever it is. And these boys would be taken by force from their families. There's nothing the families could do. The boys would be taken under the tutelage of the Turks. They would be converted to Islam, circumcised, all that. And then they would be turned into soldiers. And the indoctrination, brainwashing was so thorough that they became the strongest, the most powerful fighting force of the Turks. The elite fighting force, the Janissaries. Right? Eventually they became so powerful that they caused political problems. And that's how power works. So that was the deal. It was the Devshirme system or something. It's called the blood tax system. Horrific thing that they did. They will steal boys from the local people and then use those boys after they grow up to oppress the locals. Because by that time they're fully Islamized and Turkicized. And then they would oppress their own people, their own families, their own villages and cities and countries. That's what they would do. Horrific. Well, that's part of Turkish history and culture. The system of the Janissaries, the blood tax.